Welcome to Pages to Impact, the show where stories inspire change and every conversation is a chance to learn, grow, and find hope. In the blink of an eye, a Valentine's Day wedding turned into an unthinkable tragedy that would forever change one man's life. When Joseph Kress lost his beloved brother to drug-related violence, he didn't just grieve. He transformed his pain into an unwavering mission to fight America's devastating war on drugs. For over 2 decades, this decorated detective would go beyond the badge, not only bringing criminals to justice, but working tirelessly to prevent young lives from being destroyed by addiction. This is the raw, powerful story of one man's relentless pursuit of change in a broken system, proving that sometimes our deepest wounds can fuel our greatest purpose. Don't forget to subscribe to Pages to Impact, wherever you get your podcasts, to ensure you never miss an episode of these transformative conversations.
Welcome to Pages to Impact, the show where we dive into stories that truly leave a mark. I'm sitting down with Joseph M. Kress, a retired police detective whose life was turned upside down when his brother was tragically murdered. In his powerful memoir, Single-Handed, Joseph opens up about decades in law enforcement, the hard truths he's seen in America's war on drugs, and what pushed him to keep fighting even when it meant going beyond the badge. So Joseph, right here, I'm just so glad that you're here with us today. Would you like to share a bit about yourself and what you do, what keeps you busy besides being an author?
Thank you, James. It's a pleasure being here with you today. My name is Joseph Kress. I am a retired detective lieutenant from Erie, Pennsylvania. I was in law enforcement for 26 years, and during that time, I was also deputized FBI, Immigration and Custom Enforcement, DEA, ATF, and Secret Service. I worked as a federal liaison, and I had a great career. I was involved in the arrest of 9 people for murder. I have captured 391 on America's Most Wanted. I basically dedicated my life to law enforcement and the fight against drug addiction and drug abuse because of a family tragedy. My older brother got married on Valentine's Day in a candlelight ceremony in a beautiful cathedral. And they were going to go to Hawaii, but because of the weather, there was a tremendous weather situation and they weren't able to fly out. So they ended up going to Washington, they went to Florida, and they went to New Orleans, where a career criminal who was a drug user and his co-conspirator who was a drug user murdered my brother and seriously injured my sister-in-law just around them to get money for drugs. And that changed my entire life.
That's quite a tragedy. And what I like about your story is you turned that tragic into a mission that's really helping a lot of people, especially you capturing these hundreds of criminals. Joseph, your decision to join law enforcement came from an incredibly personal place, your brother's murder, right? Can you take again to the time about that Valentine's season? But I'd like you to share how it shaped your mission in life.
Well, 10 days after he was married in this cathedral, we were planning his funeral in the same cathedral. And it was devastating to my entire family. It changed my life. I had been working for my family's company, my family's business, and it changed me to a point where I had to leave our family's business and become a police officer because it was so dramatic, so tragic that I needed to make every effort I could to make a change. And I was dedicated to fighting this, quote, war on drugs. But I found out later in my career that the war on drugs is not really, law enforcement's out there doing their thing. They're really trying to make a difference, but it takes more than law enforcement. It takes educating people before it becomes a problem of addiction. So that's why I actually stayed in law enforcement all those years, and I became exceptional. Well, I've been qualified 85 times in federal and state court as an expert in the field of drugs. I went to the best drug schools this country has to offer. I actually was selected to go to the DEA Drug Unit Commanders Academy in Quantico, Virginia. I was in a class of 43 other people from all over the world, not just from the United States. So,
Wow. That's quite an achievement. I can definitely see and feel the heart there. It's not just a job for you, but it's really like a life's mission. Now, Joseph, you serve in multiple elite roles, right? SWAT, sniper, liaison with federal agencies, expert witness. Early in your career, what moments gave you hope that real change was possible in the fight against drugs?
well, early on in my career, I was very focused on drug traffickers. And I decided that I would make every effort to go as hard as I could to get drug traffickers in prison, because they're the ones who are feeding this poison to the people in this country and basically all over the world. What I did was I would focus every day when I drive in my patrol car. And when I worked in patrol, I focused on going after drug traffickers. And yeah, I was involved in arresting people for burglaries and robberies and rapes and homicides and things like that. But my number one goal was drug traffickers, because the FBI, Bureau of Justice Statistics, proves that 80% of all crime, no matter what kind of crime it is, 80% of the time, it's involving drugs in one way or another. So that was my number one focus. I found that later in my career that just arresting these people wasn't getting the job done, because other people would just step in and take their place and be the big seller of the drugs in that community. Yeah. So I started to focus on how to deal with this situation before it becomes a problem of addiction. And that's when I started doing these presentations in middle and high schools. I would take somebody out of prison in handcuffs and leg irons and take them to a school, and they would tell their story about how drugs and alcohol destroyed their life and put them in prison.
Yeah. Wow. This is not an ordinary war that you're facing. Like, everyone is facing this, and not all, I would say, officers basically has the type of heart that you have. Well, let me ask you this. At what point did you begin to realize that the so-called war on drugs was not being fought the way the public was led to believe?
Well, when a drug dealer goes and posts $100,000 cash to get out of jail because you put him in jail for trafficking drugs, and next thing you know, as soon as your paperwork's done, he's out and he's walking down the street. And then he does, let's say he gets 5 years in prison, and he gets out and he just happens to have enough money to start a business, buy a clothing store, or make some kind of a legitimate business with the proceeds that he made from drug transactions. That troubles me a lot, because there were a lot of people who paid a terrible price becoming addicted because of this guy making money. And that's when I realized that the system is not working the way it should. And the problem that I saw early on was how many young people were doing stupid stuff that they normally wouldn't do if they weren't on drugs or alcohol.
Yeah.
And once I was able to see how many young people were getting drawn slowly into this lifestyle of drug abuse, I knew I had to do something to try and help our young people in middle and high school before they become addicted. So I developed a drug and alcohol awareness program for middle and high school kids. I took my expertise from my education in drug and alcohol, and I put it to use to try and develop a program where students really get their eyes open, and it makes them to a point where they aren't interested in becoming the guy that's smoking weed or doing acid or maybe taking some pills. or next step is up into cocaine and methamphetamine and heroin. So I developed a program, and it had a wonderful following. When I was doing these presentations for free, I would take these people out of prison, and I would put them in front of a student body, and for an hour, hour and a half, you could literally hear a pin drop, except for the tears. When a student realizes, oh my God, that's my life, and they break down, or that's my mom, that's my dad, that's my brother or sister or cousin or best friend. And once that struck with them, you would hear tears. But for an hour to an hour and a half, you would literally be able to hear a pin drop, and everybody was hinged on every single word of what took place. I took several people with me to these presentations that were having drug issues. Some of them were in jail. There was another police officer that was with me, and there was a former drug trafficker with me.
Wow.
And I'll tell you what, it had a reception like no other. All the school principals and teachers and counselors and school resource officers said they've never seen the student body so captivated by this message. And
That's great.
that's when I realized that we have to educate these kids before they become addicted.
I totally agree. Another question. You describe mismanagement and apathy from elected officials.
Oh, yeah.
Can you share a specific incident or a policy failure that left you stunned or frustrated?
Well, let me get my book of details out. It's about that thick. I've met with governors, state representatives, governor staffs, congressmen, senators, a secretary of health and human services. I've met with numerous superintendents. When you leave their office, they have no idea who you are. They don't contact you. They don't care. They just give you a bunch of lip service until you're out the door. And it's troubling to me because at the only time in a person's life when they have the opportunity to help somebody, and the only time in a student's life when they have the opportunity to learn how drugs and alcohol are going to literally destroy the rest of their life, a lot of these administrators turn their back and do nothing.
That's frustrating.
And that's what it's really troubling.
Yeah.
For instance, last summer, I sent 50 superintendents of school districts in the Cleveland, Ohio area, simply a letter asking for the opportunity of a meeting to show them a drug and alcohol program that has a tremendous success ratio. Well, of those 50 superintendents or schools, I received only one reply.
Oh,
And that was, no, thank you.
it's really sad.
If I had the cure for cancer, they would have been passing on it because they don't care. They feel that's not my problem. I don't have to deal with this. When this guy goes out the door, the problem's behind me. But yet, every single day in the United States, every single day, over 300 people die of drug overdose death.
Wow, that's really troubling. Expecting a lot from leaders chosen by the people to lead, and yet they don't care about the future of our next generation, right? Things like this are still happening nowadays.
To paint this picture a little more accurately, let's say for the sake of discussion that a 737 jet crashes and kills everybody on board, 300 people today. It would be the talk of the nation for weeks.
True.
But if it happened today and then it happens again tomorrow, they would really be talking about this for a long time. But, well, guess what? The government would shut down every 737 flying. They will not fly until we find out what's causing this issue. Well, guess what? Every single day in America, 300 people that would be on that jet. 300 people die of drug overdose and nothing happens. It's like, that's not my problem.
Yeah.
Every day, 2023, 111,000 people in the United States died of drug overdose. But the amazing thing is, if you look at 1999, nationally, we had 18,000 people die of drug overdose.
That's really
That increase is staggering.
yeah,
It's staggering.
staggering. Like every day, I think it changes and it's increasing. I just wish leaders are able to see the situation so they would do something about it. Just to take matters into your hands by doing all of these programs, what were some of the personal and the professional risks you face in doing this?
Well, in order for me to gain the expertise that I gained, I had to be out in the street, and I had to be out chasing drug dealers, doing an intense investigation. Some investigations took months in order to get a person when they're trafficking a heavy load of drugs, to get them in and get them in custody and seize the drugs that they had and the money that they were making. And it was very intense, very laborsome. You worked all hours in the day and night with a team of people that were dedicated like myself. And it was not easy to sit back and learn that expertise, because you have to live that expertise in order to be able to stand back and say, hey, I've gone to the best schools possible. I was dealing with drug traffickers. I was involved in hundreds of arrests, hundreds of investigations. And in order to be able to see how law enforcement is working advocately, but it's not getting the job done, you had to live that experience. The only time in a person's life when they get that opportunity to learn how it starts with a beer. I interviewed hundreds of people that were drug addicted. Not one ever said, I've never smoked, I don't do drugs, I don't drink, I don't do this. But today, I'm going to go buy some crack cocaine and smoke crack. It doesn't work that way. These kids don't realize it starts with a beer. One beer. Their buddy calls them up, hey, I took a 6-pack of beer from my dad's refrigerator. He's gone for the week. And come on over, what? And they like that little feeling of getting a little buzz on drinking. And the next thing you know, instead of drinking one beer every couple months, they're drinking beer every chance they get. And when they become acclimated with going to a beer party with their friends, and this starts in 6th grade. All of the studies prove it starts when they're 12 years old. And when all their friends start having their little parties and they get that buzz on, somebody's going to hand them a joint, or they're going to hand them a pill, or they're going to hand them a tab of LSD. And now they're on a bus and they're not driving, because it changes their body, it changes their mind, it changes the high, and they like it. But nowadays, if Johnny, your best friend, hands you an Adderall pill, and it didn't come from a drugstore, it might have been made by the cartel in Mexico, you might be putting in your mouth a pill that contains 3 little granules of fentanyl. If you have 3 granules of sugar, and to give you the perspective of how big it is, 3 granules of fentanyl will kill you. It's that powerful. And they put it in fentanyl, they put it in Adderall pills, Oxycontin, they put it in Dilaudid, they put it in Vicodin, they put it in all kinds of different pills, and they sell it on the street. If it doesn't come from a drugstore, you're putting a gun to your head and squeezing a trigger, hoping that there's nothing in that pill. It's that dangerous. And kids don't know. It's gotten so bad that they actually are soaking marijuana in liquid fentanyl. They liquefy the fentanyl, stir it up, and they soak marijuana in there, and then they dry it, and people in the United States are smoking. It's that dangerous.
Yeah. Thought about your kids' future, but when your kids are out there and these drugs are available, you just don't know if your kids are safe or not, right? Because of what's going on. Um, let's talk about your book, Single Handed. This is not just about your career, it's also about your persistence in the face of systemic failure. How did you maintain your drive and sense of purpose when the system seems stacked against you?
I was a very driven person when I was younger. I was an athlete in school and I ended up coaching for years afterwards, in my spare time. But I wanted to do something as a tribute to my brother. My
Mhm.
brother was the softest hearted person. He was just a wonderful guy. He was always outgoing to do anything for anybody. And I wrote the book single handed.
Yeah.
That book starts at St. Peter's Cathedral at his wedding. And the book single handed transitions into my law enforcement career and how I became a policeman.
Mhm.
And what I did, there are many stories like, oh my God, Joe, you admitted to doing that stuff. You're going to go to prison. And it's a disclaimer in the beginning of the book, the disclaimer that it's not all true. But it was apparently it was so captivating that they felt the story was all true. And I was a sniper on the SWAT team.
Yeah.
I've had a great career. And quite honestly, the furthest range I ever shot at was a 500-yard range. So if you put 5 football fields together and hold my book up,
Yeah.
I hole right through it.
I remember that
And
when we had our first conversation, you told me about this, and it was like, oh my gosh, this guy is amazing. You're not just an ordinary sniper. Imagine 500 yards, right? Like, not everybody can do that. So that's really amazing. Now, Joseph, looking back, what moments stand out as proof that one determined person can make a real difference?
when we did the live presentations, that had a dramatic impact on me
Mm-hmm.
because I saw an auditorium with 700 students in there,
Mm-hmm.
and they literally were on the edge of their seat. When the presentations were over, we would every one of us that did these presentations would have 50 to 100 kids around us wanting me to sign their book or wanting me to sign their backpack or can I get my picture with you and things like that. I mean, we felt like rock stars. And it had such an overwhelming effect on these young people.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the stories that I did was I asked the students to, if they enjoyed the program, I asked them to write me a letter to tell me what they felt about the program and what they thought. And I have binders. One binder has over 200 letters in it where students, resource officers, teachers, counselors, principals, vice principals of schools, they would all write us letters. And I'm going to tell you what, it showed me that we were making a historic impact on students. And it really brought them to the forefront that this is something I have to do. If I am an auditorium and I only can save one kid from a lifetime of addiction, I have done something fantastic by that presentation.
I totally agree. Now, if you could redesign America's approach to the drugs crisis tomorrow, what would be your top 3 priorities?
Top 3 priorities?
Yep.
My top 3 priorities would be to take whatever I have to do to put my program in front of students.
Mm-hmm.
That is my biggest priority because students need to understand what they're getting involved in. And it's so smooth the way it transitions from one beer to a couple beers the next time to a 6-pack of beer and, oh, hey, here's a point. And that is something that they don't even realize it's happening. It happens so smooth, this transition into being just the model student into having one beer and next thing you know, oh, here's an Adderall pill or here's a joint. or here's a tab of LSD. And next thing you know, you think, oh, yeah. When their abilities to say no is diminished by alcohol, that's when young people get involved in this. And if they don't know that, by the time they're out of middle school and into high school, that's when it becomes exceptionally dangerous. And I know that my calling in life was to try and save people from a lifetime of addiction. I know that at that point, when I saw the reaction of these young people and how much they appreciated learning, Mercyhurst University did a study on my program a year after students had seen my program. 75% of those students said my program was extremely effective. 25% said that it was somewhat effective, but not one student said that it was not effective. And that's part of the main drive that I have, because I know I have something that helps.
Awesome. So your story begins with a tragedy, and again, it's something very dramatic and devastated towards your family, but it ended up with a sense of a mission. What do you hope readers, especially the young people, take away from your journey?
I hope readers take what transpired from my tragedy so that their family. I really hope that they can see how my brother, who was totally innocent, he wasn't involved in drugs, he was on his honeymoon, and how these people actually set him up just for the purpose of wedding rings. They took his credit cards, and fortunately, the police arrested him very shortly, minutes after he had murdered my brother, and they seriously injured my sister-in-law. And she survived literally only by the grace of God.
Amen to that.
Like,
Yeah. When you think about your legacy here, do you see yourself more as a lawman or a reformer, or maybe someone who refused to stand by?
well, I'm somebody that refuses to stand by. I guarantee you that.
It's not an easy thing to do, but when you know what's the right thing to do, you just have to do it regardless.
Exactly.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know that God put me on earth to be a law enforcer. It was very important for me to go into law enforcement because that was the number one way that I could start to make an impact on crime and on criminality involving drug and alcohol addiction.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that my dedication to putting a drug and alcohol program together to help kids before it becomes a problem for them, that was a very important aspect of it too. But not the person to stand by and watch. You won't catch me stand there with my video camera just videotaping all of this happening.
Yeah,
No, I definitely won't stand by.
that's great.
But my SWAT team brothers nicknamed me the Tasmanian Devil, and that was my nickname on the SWAT team. So I guess just that nickname alone kind of says I'm getting into it. I'm going to do whatever I can to help people that are being injured or hurt.
That's amazing. I admire you, your heart. I understand that it is not just a job for you, but like I said, not all officers have the kind of heart that you have. And it amazes me every time I think about you as an author. This book that you did publish right now, how are you currently promoting the book? I believe you're working with a team. Can you share with us your experience with this team, and what are your plans in terms of getting it more exposed so more people can actually enjoy the book at the same time they get to also hear the message?
Well, I went to work with a company called Viral Book Nation,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the best thing I ever did. A beautiful website for me. I'm getting a lot of promotion from that. And the meetings that I have every couple of weeks with you and your team on the internet really enhance how this book is going to be brought out and promoted. I never wrote a book before. This book was written from my heart. It happens to, and it's surprising to me that it has like 65-star reviews on Amazon.
Wow.
And it's been on the Amazon bestseller list for the last 5 months.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I'd never read a book before, but this comes from my heart. All the stories in this book up to page 113 are all true. And I was blessed with opportunity of sharing a story that very few people would ever have. A lot of people, when they hear the story about what happened to my brother and how tragic it was, a lot of people get tears in their eyes, and it was even worse. And it was just devastating to my parents, my siblings. It was my determination after that happened to not only just write the book, but actually try to put together a drug and alcohol program that was really effective. Now, I have to share this with you, James, because I think it's important to note that I developed a program that's a 9-class curriculum. It's an hour-long video of the people who were in my drug program that I would take to schools. The 3 people that were in those programs were drug addicted, was a drug trafficker. All 3 of them are dead.
Oh,
All 3 of them are now dead. And I am so thankful that I got them on video before 2 died of drug overdose, knowing full well they were in prison, they were in jail. I'd take them to schools in handcuffs or leg irons. They could not stop because of addiction. When they got out of jail, they got right back into that same loop. And the 3rd one, he was in a bar with his best friend, his very best friend. And he used to sell a lot of drugs, but he'd only do a little bit of drugs. Well, while they're sitting there having a beer, Paul was sitting there with his younger brother and his best friend, Matt Perez. And Matt Perez says, "Hey, Paul, let's go and do a line in the bathroom." They were going to snort some coke. They walk in, they snort a line of coke, they come out, finish their beer, and all 3 of them walk out to Paul's car. And as Paul was looking in the trunk of his car for something, Matt's standing behind him. And Matt says, "Hey, Paul, I've got something for you." And Paul stood up and turned around and bam, shot him 1 time in the heart, and he dropped stone dead on the sidewalk. Matt Perez's sentencing in front of Judge Corley, Matt Perez said to the judge, "Your Honor, I have no idea why I did that. He was my best friend."
that's really sad.
It's the real world, James.
It is.
It's the real world, and this could have been prevented had he learned in school. And that's something I have to share with you. You know, the DARE program, unfortunately, the DARE program spent $30 billion of taxpayers' money, and they had it running for years, but it was ineffective from day one. And in 2002, Senator Dick Durbin received a letter from the Government Accounting Office that they, after extensive studies, there was no significant difference between students who had gone through DARE. It didn't work. And obviously, if we had 18,000 people nationwide die in 1999, and now we have, in 2023, 1,000 people died, what they've done hasn't worked. But I can tell you this, if somebody sees my program, if a young person goes through my program, they are not going to mess around with drugs or alcohol, because it shows them that, oh, you want to do cocaine or smoke meth or do heroin? Well, in heroin and in some cocaine and some, they're putting fentanyl and all that stuff, you're probably going to die. But the other part of the story is they're putting out a drug called xylazine in a lot of pills now. And xylazine is a flesh-eating disease. It literally eats the flesh of the people who are using that drug. Wow. Yeah, they get high, but xylazine goes to work, and next thing you know, their sores are right down to the bone in their legs and their arms, and the only thing a doctor can do is amputate their limbs.
That's so scary.
It's terrible.
It is.
I have photographs of people that have xylazine wounds, and believe me, it is sickening. It's sickening. And kids don't know that if they take that Adderall pill, that might not be the only thing in there. So
Wow.
that's why I'm dedicated to try and make a difference about this.
Well, Joseph, I want to encourage you again. You've been doing this, and I want to encourage you to keep doing what you're doing, because you're not just leaving a legacy, you're saving lives, especially the future of the next generation. So I want to thank you for sharing your story, your courage, especially your heart with us today. Single-handed isn't just a memoir. It is a reminder that one person's determination can make ripples far beyond what we see. And to our listeners of the Pages to Impact, I hope Joseph's journey inspires you to stand up for what matters, even when the road gets tough, right? So if you want to dive deeper, grab a copy of Single-Handed. It's available on Amazon. You can walk away with a new perspective on resilience, justice, and hope. This has been a great episode with Pages to Impact. And until next time, keep turning pages and making an impact. Joseph, thank you so much for your time with us today.
I would like to thank you and all your team or Viral Book Nation. And I see a significant difference in all the things that I'm doing with my book. Thank you.
I really appreciate your trust as well. But Joseph, I know there will be authors who will be listening to this podcast, and there are authors that really had terrible experiences in the past. What would be that one message that you want to give them despite of the terrible experience?
I think the most important thing you can do is deal with reputable people. Saying this because it's true. Viral Book Nation has really been good to me. When they say they're going to do something, they deliver. And unlike a lot of these different companies in the book industry, believe me, you have to do your homework. But if you're going to deal with Viral Book Nation, take it from me. You don't have to do any homework. All you got to do is get on board, and they take great care of you. It's the truth. And I'm happy to say that.
I really appreciate that so much. A lot of these authors like you have wonderful messages to share that really deserve to be part of our episodes. And we just wanted to, again, re-encourage them and give them hope that it's not the end, right? Like there's still an agency like Viral Book Nation who are actually truly and deeply involved with authors' passion in really sharing wonderful messages. And Joseph, once again, thank you for being with us today. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Thank you so much, and have a great day, Joseph.
Thank you, James.
All right, thank you so much. Bye-bye.